Welcome back to High River, Alberta, in the amazing community about 30 minutes south of the city of Calgary. And our special guest for today's program is the Guy Weedick Showdown's co-chairman, Blake Willard. Blake, we tend to talk a lot about the third week in June when it's Guy Weedick Showtime in High River, but actually for Western sports outdoor activities, you guys get started with a little britches rodeo back on the long weekend in May.
Yeah, that's basically right around the long weekend, and it's always been one of the premier events in Alberta. And as far as some of the who's who of rodeo that have ever won anything in Canada or even in NFR, they started there riding steers or the wild pony events and bareback riding as kids under 16 years of age, and that's where that Little Britches Rodeo come from. And there's just a ton of support for that. That's the first big rodeo, and the community is behind that one. The parade and everything that goes along with it, it's a staple. This year they did a virtual parade. They said, okay, if you've got pictures or video or anything from past Little Britches parades, please send them in. Well, they did about an hour and a half video that you could sit there and watch old parades, basically, and in some cases, people sitting along the parade route, and it was really quite unique and innovative to actually still have a parade, and nobody's there. It's a virtual parade. So it was a wonderful thing that they did this year, just to make sure everybody didn't forget about what was going on there.
We tend generally to focus on the actual sporting activities, but in reality, not many of these could even exist without the corporate community stepping up to play a very important role each and every year. In light of this COVID world pandemic, the business world has certainly been very hard hit, and that has to concern your Chuckwagon committee as you move forward, Blake.
Well, especially with the corporate sponsorship, of course. We're all aware of what's going on in the world with the financial situation. A lot of these companies have just been devastated and torn in half. So in order for them to actually start stepping up to the plate again and putting money into canvas sponsorship, tarp sponsors, sign sponsors, heat sponsors, it's going to be difficult for them. There are a few companies that are still going fairly strongly, and some of their businesses have increased. So hopefully they'll remember why they increased, and they'll want to actually step up to the plate and do that. And in High River, it's been a great spot for sponsorship. The old days are gone, where back in the 40s and the 50s, where the wagons would roll in and they'd have a 1-ton truck with some horses on it and a wagon strapped to the back, and they'd roll up and go door to door and ask if they could get a couple $100 just to paint somebody's name on a canvas. So they would have blank canvases and they would paint the sponsor's name on there, and that's what the sponsorship was in the old canvas sales.
Like, you're standing beside a very special commemorative chuck wagon and tarp with the word fire wagon emblazoned on the side of it. Tell us a little bit about the story behind that.
Well, all my life has been chuck wagons, and before I was born. So basically, I have driven chuck wagons but never raced them, and horses pretty much all my life. And so we decided, okay, in 1997, the World Police Fire Games was coming, and so we said, okay, chuck wagons have been racing around for, at that time, probably 80 years. And I said, but the fire wagons, the old horse-drawn fire wagons, were going around for centuries. So why don't we put together a chuck wagon and sponsor it for 1997? Well, we did that in 97, and we carried on for 15 years after that. And it was pretty much the first time that an actual wagon family was a sponsor. And we had up to 40 or 50 corporate sponsors involved just with our fire wagon. And one year we had 6 out of the 36 chuck wagon sponsors that were either part of our wagon at one time and stepped up and bought a tarp on their own, or were still actually part of our wagon because they wanted to remain part of it so they could come for the hospitality, the food, the live music, and enjoy the camaraderie around the fire wagon. We used to have a lot of fun.
Some closing thoughts about the High River Rodeo and Chuckwagon Committee and what makes this venue one of those really special tour stops on the circuit each year for not only the contestants but the many fans that come out each and every spring to see what's really happening.
Well, probably High River is one of the premier events of the year. It's not the biggest, but it is one of the closest up close places you can go back, visit the drivers, go visit the horses. It's not a high security area for all that kind of stuff, and you can come back and get a real close-up view. And when they say feel the thunder, you can be up on the rail and feel that thunder. It's just a beautiful setting and a wonderful place to go. High River is a real heritage town. The whole feel is all small town America. It's just a wonderful place to be in the West, for sure.
We're in High River, Alberta, Canada, about 30 minutes south of the big city of Calgary, nestled in the shadow of a major metropolitan area. But one of the great spots in Alberta to get out and enjoy the great Western way of life, especially with chuckwagon racing and a rodeo. And it's been our pleasure to have the co-chairman of the Guy Weedick Championships, Blake Willard, as our special guest. I'm Arnie Jackson for TVU Sports. So long for now.